Hello, and welcome to today's session, Your Business Vaccine, Ensuring Survival Through Any Climate. My name is Jody Shaw, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. Today's session will last approximately 60 minutes, and today's session we will be doing our virtual session setup. So there's a couple things for you to note if you're on our live session. Number one, our general session room that we're currently in is being recorded and will be available for on-demand viewing if your colleagues are not able to join us for today's live session. During our session, we'll invite everyone to our breakout session rooms towards the middle of today's session, in which you'll be asked to turn on your webcams, turn on your mics, but during the actual session, you can turn off your webcams, you can keep yourselves on mute throughout the content. During today's live session, we'll also have the chat box available at the bottom of your screen, and you'll be able to ask questions at any point via that chat box, and we'll make sure that we ask your questions. If you were watching this from an on-demand standpoint, come join us for a live session. We have so much more of that engagement opportunities, so join us in the future. For those of you that are watching live or on demand, you're going to want to make sure you keep that session launch page open in the background. So after today's session, you can go back to that session launch page to complete the survey for today's session, and that evaluation will add the credit to your transcript. So that's how you get credit for attending today's session, and also how you give our fantastic speaker some feedback on how the session went. And our session handouts will not be available on the session resources page, but they will be available by contacting the speaker directly after the session, and she'll be able to send those over to you. Her contact information will be on the last slide of today's session, so just make sure you write that down and email her if you would like a copy of the PowerPoint presentation from today's session. The session will be recorded and available for on-demand viewing immediately following today's session. And now it is my pleasure to introduce today's speaker. Sarah Webb has over 20 years of industry experience. When she started her own company in 2013, Intandem Promotions, and she's been a fantastic resource when it comes to really seeing what we should be doing from a strategic foresight standpoint in planning ahead for our businesses. So without further delay, I give you Sarah.
Hey everyone. Well, thank you, Jody, for the introduction, and thank you guys all for being here the middle of the day for most of us. I really appreciate you guys checking in. It really shows the dedication that you have to your own business. I wanted just to start out by saying, how many of you guys remember Harold and the Magic Crown? Now, I'm from the South, so I say crown for any of you who can't understand me, but Harold and the Magic Crown. So what he did was he would start this drawing on the wall, and it would be a scribble or a line, and it would turn it into this, using his full imagination, a monster or a tree or whatever his imagination took him on. And that's the journey that I'm taking you on today. Only today it's going to be Sarah in the teal crown on this side, and we're going to create your business vaccine. How many of us would not jump at the opportunity to have the single shot, that one business vaccine, to have COVID be gone? That one magic, in, out, we're done. This has all just been a really bad dream. And I think there's not one of us that would raise our hand and say, I don't want that shot. But the fact of the matter is that COVID is here, and many of us have been through the dot-com burst. We've been through 9/11. We've been through construction and housing crash, now the pandemic. And so that's my background. And then many other generations have been through many other challenges as well, business challenges and personal challenges. And so we come to this knowing that there's going to be something else. Once we do have that magical vaccine that's going to cure us from this pandemic, there's going to be something else. and another and another. So just a little bit of history. You know, I have been in the industry for over 20 years, and I started Intandem in 2013. And in speaking with a number of my friends and colleagues and partners, I came to the realization that through this pandemic, there were a number of organizations that were struggling, and then a number of organizations that were completely thriving and surviving through it. And so that's what, and having a lot of those conversations, there was so much commonality and opportunities where we can turn our businesses from whether they're struggling over to being much more resilient. And it's not going to happen overnight. Unfortunately, there's not just that one shot. It's the day in, day out, little steps that you're going to be taking. I know that sometimes we think that it's a little bit of luck that makes one company do better than the other. And that's not necessarily the case. You know, when the economy was doing well and orders were pouring in, and then all of a sudden now we're clawing and scratching and researching and having to do all the PPE investigation to figure out how to serve our clients. But if you take a second and think about it, how many of you all of a sudden are just touching base with your clients? How many of you have finally sent out that direct mail campaign that was sitting on your desk for the last year and a half, 6 months? You know, now that business is slow, so many of us are doing the things, what we call the woulda, coulda, shoulda list. And by all of a sudden doing these things, I don't know if you guys have had the same reaction, but I've had a number of supplier partners reach out that I've never even met before that are all of a sudden saying, hey, I'm just checking in. And it feels a little bit disingenuous because that relationship wasn't built on the front end. And now when times are a little bit rougher, I feel like we're being bombarded. And so there's some opportunities that we have in our day in and day out to build those relationships so it doesn't feel like you're having that pressure and so much being thrown on you. So one of the things that I want you guys to take a second and type some things in the chat just so that we can see some of your thoughts and feedback. But what is the one thing that you weren't doing the pandemic, that you weren't doing before the pandemic, that you totally should have been focused on? I know for us, the hardest thing that we have is just managing the client follow-ups and checking in with our clients and managing it after the quote has happened. And so, you know, what are some of the things? Is it the direct mail? Is it the spec samples? All of those things.
We've heard from some people constant contact, building out my Google My Business platform, social media.
Yeah. Really good. So when things are a little bit slower, we have time to say, oh gosh, why did I not focus on these things before? So now you have something in mind on what you should have been doing. I want you to use some of today's session to brainstorm out a plan on how to do those things weekly, daily, monthly, so that the woulda, coulda, shoulda doesn't come into, oh my goodness, here we are. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Eric Church song, If I Could Kill a Word, but there are about a dozen words from this pandemic that I totally want to kill. A couple of those being pandemic, I don't ever want to hear this word again, unprecedented, pivot, and now the new normal. Y'all, I've got to tell you this. There's no such thing as a new normal. There's no such thing. Every morning you wake up and it's a new day. It's a new normal. It's a new day. So for us to have this mindset that, oh, I don't know how to navigate the new normal, just waking up, you've got a new normal. And so you're going to get up, you're going to rise, you're going to fall, you're going to rise, you're going to fall. All of these things are going to constantly happen. And it's all in how you're handling and managing the process through this that you're going to be able to be successful and manage your business through this pandemic. The word that I can't stand. So according to Ernst & Young, the top reasons why businesses fail is not investigating in the market, business plan problems, too little financing, bad internet, presence, which that was one of the things we talked about through social media, bad location, marketing, again, some great things that we wish that we would have done that are going on in the chat, remaining too rigid, so not being able to pivot during this, or expanding too fast. And those are just some of the top reasons why businesses fail. Abraham Lincoln said, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I'll spend the first 4 sharpening my axe." So what I want to do through the next part of this conversation is talking about opportunities for us to sharpen our axe and prepare to get us through this moment, but then also through future moments. So the first thing that I want to remind you of, and this was one of the comments in the chat about the constant contact and communication, but you need to know your market. When the pandemic hit, a lot of times we're very, very distracted in managing our day-to-day and orders and products and things of that nature. But you really need to understand your clients and who you are working with. Where this really played a key role for me in my business is that I knew the industries that we are working in. And so as we had to make the transition from selling event product to more of the safety product, I knew the types of items that they were going to need to handle their specific industry and their specific needs. So when all of this happened for me and in Georgia, I marked the day as March 13th because that's when we found out that our children were not going to school. And at that time, I was very optimistic. I'm not going to lie. I really thought that we were going to be right back in it the middle of April after spring break. But that didn't happen. And so during this middle of March, I was already working with my clients on providing them with the appropriate PPE, knowing that schools were going to shut down and some of their businesses were going to need to adjust to handle this as well. My next piece of advice with this is spend time with your network. I would not be in the position that we are through this pandemic if it wasn't through my friends, both through the partnering group, the buying group that Intandem is part of, through my women's CEO group, and then also through my women's mastermind group that is all part of my industry peers. We navigated through the PPP program. We navigated through different ways on how we were going to approach it, employee problems, how we were going to manage all of our finances through all of this. But spend time and invest in your network. We're all very busy, but having the confidence and the ability to go to my peers when all of this was happening, to cry, to laugh, to drink, was so vital for us and our success. Jim Rohn said that you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So who are they? Who are you spending your time with? And are they building you up, or are they like pecking your eyeballs out from the side of the road and like some big meat carcasses and all this gross stuff happening? You know, really think about that. I really hope that I can be the average of my peers that I interact with, because they're pretty amazing people. The next piece of advice is, you know, participate in these events. And, you know, obviously when we start going back to events, but participate in some of these online opportunities. Be present, show yourself. People want to see who you are and they want to know more about you. And participating in the events, you gain knowledge and insight every single time. And, you know, again, one of the things that makes me a little bit crazy is all of stalkers. So you're scrolling through your social media and you're not engaging and not participating in people's posts or their the opportunities that they have. People want to hear from you and they want to hear your feedback. So like, share, present, and help the community and with which you're around. So my team here at Intandem, every quarter we focus on a different book, and we recently finished Slight Edge, and it's a book that I highly recommend, especially during here, because it was a really good reminder for me to get into the right mindset. So with the book Slight Edge, it goes hand in hand with a lot of Tony Robbins and some other motivational speakers thoughts about taking the time, as I said, on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis to manage your day. You know, Tony Robbins says, just move the needle 2%. I don't know about you, but for me, if there's too much on my plate, I can feel myself shrinking in. I can feel the stress mount. And quite frankly, I just want to take a nap. So if I'm managing a little bit every single day, I don't have this mound of things that I have to do. So for example, client follow-ups, I'm a paper person, don't kill me, but I am a paper person. I print everything out. And so I have my reports on who I need to follow up. And literally, maybe it's 15, 20 people a day, but that's a lot easier than at the end of the week having to follow up on 100 people. And so just taking that 2% and either it's making a note to post 2 special things a week on the different platforms, or updating a few of your contacts. I saw that was one of the things on the CRM, updating a few of your contacts and just making sure that things are caught up to speed. So about 2 years ago, when all of this hit the fan for me personally, I was in a crazy space. I was working a lot. I was not sleeping. I wasn't eating. My life was crazy because I was so stressed out. And I wasn't really managing my day. And the best piece of advice that I received was, Sarah, you've got to start your day in a better manner. And so literally I had a coach sit down with me and we played out how my day needed to go. Because I just felt like I had all of these balls that I was dropping. And this made a monumental change for me, but also set the stage for me to be able to get through the pandemic and stay in the right mental state most of the time. So number one piece of advice is, for me, I have to get up early in the morning and I work out. I work out at 4:45. I've got a class and a group of peers that I'm accountable for, and I get my workout in. I was trying to do that at night, and I was so exhausted from the day, my head just hurt, and so it just wasn't going to happen. So I do that, and then the other thing that I do is when I come home, I clean my house for 10 minutes. I run the dishwasher, I put in a load of laundry, I set the Roomba. I know it sounds a little bit weird, but what was happening was I was working all week, and then on the weekends, I was having to spend time playing catch up. And so just managing a few things in the morning enabled me to come home to a house that wasn't a disaster and it wasn't adding to my stress. The next thing that I do is I meditate. And guys, I know that this sounds totally hippie. Hub did a great webinar. So if you guys have a chance, definitely go and check it out from our friends at Hub. But they did a great series. And some of it is hippie, but you guys are going to find what works for you. For me, what works out is I have I write down, 5 things that I'm grateful for. And during the pandemic, it absolutely set my brain in the right place. So we just returned from vacation. The 4 of us were on 4 flights, my family, 4 flights, back and forth. It was a little bit crazy. And we all returned and none of us got COVID. I am knocking on wood and everything else, but definitely something to be very grateful for. And there's so many more, my friends, my peers, having the support system. And then from there, I focus on what I am going to do. So projects that I'm going to win, RFPs that we're going to succeed at, clients that we're going to capture. And what was so cool, I started looking back at this from March, how many things we have accomplished and won through this pandemic that I was checking off the list, even in this period of time. And so that, again, it helps build the momentum that I need to keep myself in the right frame of mind. And then lastly, spend time reading and growing and learning. PBAI was so gracious to give all of us the opportunity to go through and get our CAS and our MAS. I have been in the industry for 20 plus years. I never took the time to do it. This was a great opportunity. So I finally have my 3 little letters after my name, which I'm really excited about. But spend time, and you can do a little bit of that every single day. So reading a chapter in a book, there's so many opportunities for you. And the cool thing about right now is that there's free webinars, like free everything. So I've learned things from product photography, when you're talking about social media and imaging and things like that, all the way through corporate financing and all of the different things. So really take advantage, but make sure that it's going in the right direction. So the next thing I want to talk to you guys about is financing. That's, again, one of the top reasons why businesses fail. And when you are, you're talking about financing, Profit First is one of my favorite tools and recommendations. If you guys have not read it, it's from Mike McAlvich. I'm on a first name basis with him. Mike and I go way back. But seriously, I'm a huge fan. But Profit First, I have a degree in finance. I understand finance, and Profit First actually made finance make sense to me. And what it does is it set out an opportunity for me to save. And when I say that, last year I had a gut feeling that we were headed for a recession. Now, again, I'm an optimist. I totally thought it was going to happen in November. No idea it was going to happen in March. But what I did in reading this book was I was able to set up 4 separate accounts for Intandem, and you can do this personally as well. And we did this for us personally, and this has helped us manage our finances through this economy. But essentially, it's 4 separate buckets: your general fund, a savings fund, a tax fund, and an operations fund. In your savings fund, that's where a percentage, you take your profits from the month and then you divide them out, or you take your paycheck for the month and you divide it out. And in that, you're putting your money into these 4 separate buckets. Well, again, over time, it's building. So we did this last year, and from this, we were not stressed for cash. We were in a position, because we're a distributor, we had our partners were needing us to do prepayment up front, and our corporate clients were asking for extended terms, and we're in the middle. And we're having to manage both sides of this equation and still continue to run our business and pay our team and pay our employees. It was stressful. And so had we not implemented this program, I'm not sure that we would have been in the position. Now, we did ask for PPP, which we received, and the EIDL and all of the corporate financing, the government financing, but we had no idea if we were going to get it. I think a lot of people were in the same boat. You just weren't sure what was going to happen. And so having this cash really helped us. And then if you also think about it from the 2% rule, just managing a little bit of it every single month, absolutely helped us to do this. Think creatively. So when you're thinking about financing, I know a lot of us are in a similar situation where we're having to manage the PPE and then prepaying and all of that. We had an opportunity to sell 1 million gowns, and with this order, the client was not going to pay us up front, and the factory needed us to prepay. So you're talking about 1 million gowns, and for a company my size, that was a really hard number to chew off and process through. So we had to think really creatively. We worked with a partner and we broke up the shipment into different shipments. And as one shipment was receiving, we were getting paid, and then we were funding the other one. But you can work with your partners and come up with some really creative opportunities. We shared with them the purchase order that we had from the client so that they were sure that there wasn't going to be any kind of confusion or that we didn't actually have the order. But really use this as an opportunity to communicate what is happening with the marketplace to your clients as well as to your partners. And then lastly, we thought we were being so smart on a personal level. We were refinancing our house, and I was like, this is the best time. The interest rates are awesome. Well, I'm a W-2 employee, and I'm still considered self-employed because I own Intandem. And my bank, because I'm a small business, was not sure I was going to make it through this. I didn't have a prior relationship with them. They had no idea what my cash flow looked like, what things were going to happen. So this process started in February, and I didn't close. This is a refinance. This isn't even like to buy my house, a refinance that I've been paying for the whole time, and it's for less money. I don't know. So this started in February, and I didn't close on my refinance until June. So all of that to say, a lot of that was because I didn't have a relationship. On the flip side, with my business and having my relationship with my bank, they were able to help support me through the pandemic. And it was a completely different experience. They were the first to provide us with some back and forth cash loans and some different opportunities to manage a lot of this PPE that I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have had I not had this relationship with this client, with this bank. So definitely keep that in mind and start that relationship now, especially as we go into the second part of this year. All right, guys. So I know diversity and inclusion is a big topic right now. And, but I also, besides just being a inclusive society, a more inclusive society, something that I want you to think about and consider is diversify your client base. You know, when I was going through school, one of the biggest things that I was told was, and I, again, marketing and finance, so stick to your vertical. Know one vertical, know it inside and out, know everybody in that vertical, go get that vertical. Except when I got out of school, I had the dot-com burst. So every client that was in that industry, they were all of a sudden there and they were spending money. I mean, we were doing bars and I don't know, things I can't even talk about on this screen right now. I mean, crazy stuff because they were the dot-commers, right? So we were doing all this crazy stuff. Well, overnight, gone an industry. Fast forward a few more years, we all know what happens. 9/11, my event industry, you know, there was a slight pause. And then we went through the construction and banking. So my biggest advice to you is look at your client base. There's a lot of opportunity in the market right now. Lots of different industries are exploding. And then at the same time, in one industry, you can have a great opportunity and a client that's just thriving. For example, if you look at the staffing industry, there's a lot that is happening in some of the hourly and temp opportunities, but then a lot of my professional services have slowed down. So you've got people that are spending money in the same industry, and then people that have closed up and essentially are just kind of in the wait and see mode. So make sure you've got a fully diversified client base to help manage your business. There's that word again. So when I think about pivoting, I think about just remaining on the balls of your feet. You know, being able to bob and weave and be able to handle the things that are coming at you. You cannot remain rigid in any circumstances, in any format, in any time. The world is constantly changing. Things are coming at you from all different angles. And you have to have, yes, a plan. That's really important. But you also have to understand that you have to have that fluidity to know that the plan doesn't have to be this one way or no way. So as you're planning your day and doing all of these small individual steps, don't mistake movement for achievement. And that's key too. A lot of times we're so busy. I'm doing all of these things, but it's not moving you in the right direction. And for me, where I have to remain focused is in the morning when I say, I'm going to get this one thing. You know, whether it's an RFP, whether it's a client bid or a client project, or I just need to get a direct mail campaign out. Make sure that that is the right plan for you and you're actually taking the steps that it needs to move that forward. And then really the supplier network and the partners that I'm connected with have been tremendous through all of this. You guys, they see everything. They see all of the orders come through. They see all of the clients that are coming in. They know what's actually moving and what's not. You know, one of the conversations that I had with one of my partners was, yeah, I'm working on a back to work kit. And the honest conversation was, well, Sarah, I know that that's what a lot of people are doing. You need to think about a staycation kit. And so we presented something that my competitors were not presenting. We did a beach towel and we did like some really cute soaps and spa things and a couple of cute things for the kids. But we did a staycation kit and we won the project. That came out of my supplier partners. So having those tight relationships and them seeing everything is a huge, tremendous support. And that goes back to your relationships matter and building each other up to keep things going. And then lastly, become indispensable. Guys, when this whole thing happened back in March 13th, my doomsday for right now. No, my Great Awakening. We're going to call it my Great Awakening. So when March 13th happened, many of my clients came to me during that week as I shared and said, you know, things are changing. They knew that I had access to lots of product. They had no idea where to get it. It wasn't as readily dispensable. And we were finding PPE before that was a thing, before it started coming in states and being stocked and held and imprinted here. So they came to me because they know that I have the resources to make things happen. Be that way for your client. This is not just a random, hey, just checking in on you. This is what I'm seeing and this is what I would recommend. So now we are at the really, really, really fun part of this conversation. And I'm so excited to spend a few moments and brainstorm and break out with you, because I think all of us have learned different perspectives and different opportunities. So think about in your small groups, what is COVID teaching you? What have you learned from this? What are some of the trainings that you wish that you would have known before COVID happened? Was it lack of cash, either personally or professionally? Was your team, did they have the technology knowledge? Were they set up for, to work from home? Are you set up to work from home? Do you have that diverse client base, or have you lost all of your accounts? What are you focused on? It's gonna take a lot to reset our brains. So how are you moving throughout your day? Are you focused on CNN and like scrolling through social media, watching all of the things, or are you reinvesting in yourself? What's your pattern? I know that for me personally, my pattern has completely changed, and we've had to pivot. And so, how's that happened for you? And then what has worked and what hasn't worked for you during this time? So now I'm going to turn it over to Jody.
Awesome. Okay. So for those folks that are watching this on demand, please pause the session, write down and brainstorm based on these questions. That way you can get the most out of today's session.
Awesome. Well, I hope you guys had a great conversation. I know me and my small group had some good. I've got to move my video over because I'm looking to the side. All of these things that you have to figure out these days. I'm like, what is happening over here? Otherwise, I'm gonna be looking to the left, y'all. Just so you know, I'm looking to the left. But there was so many things that we have learned during this time. I know Scott had mentioned that he was focusing on. Scott, is it okay for me to talk about you? I should have asked that question, shouldn't I? But Scott was focusing on marketing and his placement within Google, and managing taking all of those steps so that he can be positioned better for success when all of this comes back. So, and that's really what has been so great about this moment, is that we're all in this together. That's another set of words where I'm like, but we all in it together. We're all going through the same things. We all have the same struggles. And so this is really your opportunity to dive in and come up with those outlandish, crazy things. This is, if there's ever a time for you to try and fail, now is the time. Now is the time. Nobody's going to say anything. Oh, it was COVID. It was COVID. I have no idea what was going through my head. I was crazy. I was online and I don't know. So this is the time to do all of those things. I know my team, we were focused on, when it first happened, we were focused on our woulda, coulda, shoulda list, like we shared. So we do a lot of fulfillment and packaging and shipping and warehousing and distribution and online stores. And our warehouse and our back-end processes, we were one of those reasons our business had expanded, and we were constantly playing catch up to what our processes were. So this gave us an opportunity to pull everything out, to count, to sort, to come up with the barcoding system and all of the processes that we needed to actually put words down on paper, words on the paper versus just in my crazy head, and absolutely utilize this moment to take back control of the business. But then at the same time, and to Scott's point, is, come up with some great ideas so that this will end. This is not forever. This is this moment. It's a moment, y'all. And so how you're positioning yourself in this opportunity, do all of the things. Take that 2%, build your client base, follow up with your clients, check in, reach out to people that you never would have thought. In one of my groups, somebody had mentioned hunting clubs. Well, I have never thought about that before. It's totally socially distanced. I'm in the South. I like camo. I can totally hang with this. But that was one vertical that I hadn't even thought about. And so, having those relationships, brainstorming and rethinking how your business is, this is the time to do it. I don't know if any of you are familiar with David Goggins. He spoke at PPAI a couple of years ago. Amazing book, amazing man. It was a great presentation that PPAI created. But in his book, he said, our whole life is set up in the path of least resistance. We don't want to suffer. We don't want to feel discomfort. So the whole time we're living our lives in this very comfortable area, and there's no growth in that. And this is my favorite quote, especially right now. We're all afraid of failure. We're all afraid that we're not going to make it. We're all afraid of all of these things. And again, this is the time for you to be totally bold and audacious, and it's okay. It is okay. So take those 2%, just do a little each day and continue to move your business forward. I'd love to connect. I'd love to hear more of your success stories and all of the things. So I've got my contact information. If you do want a copy of the presentation, please feel free to reach out and email me. And then all of my social is out there as well. Does anybody have any questions or would like to further chat?
So for those folks that do have questions, just go ahead and add them into the chat box and we will get them answered. It looks like we don't have any questions.
Then I did such a great job explaining everything, right? You guys are going out there. You've already started doing your business plans. Life is good.
I've got one question myself. So as people are looking to rehire staff back and, what that really looks like for job descriptions, I've seen a lot of articles about not writing job descriptions based on what we pre-COVID were doing or had positions, but really to think about the jobs of the future and where your transition is going. Would that be part of that 2% that you are recommending people are really starting to think through process and what could be improved when it comes to that next step and kind of going forward as people are coming back into the staffing?
Yeah, absolutely, Jody. Thank you for asking that. And each business is set up so differently. I'll tell you how Intandem is handling it. We have started rehiring, and when we have gone through the process, to your point, we really have to think about what are our next steps. So just like what Scott mentioned, I am focused on our web presence. We were using a third-party platform, and we've brought everything in-house. And so in doing that, we did move a lot of people around into different roles. So our program business expanded and our dropship business decreased. And so in doing that, we had to move our dropship team more on the program side. And so as we have started to rehire, we've had to think about, we don't know what we're hiring. We have no idea what this looks like. And so through the process, we've talked about, we're looking for somebody that can be extremely flexible, very fluid. This is what we think the position is going to be, and this is what we think it's going to look like. But setting the platform and the foundation of, I don't have the answers to this. I don't, if you like our culture and you like our industry and you can handle all of the crazy and all of the moving parts, then we totally have got you. Beyond that, I don't know what you're going to do day in and day out. So, the next 3, 6, 9 months, this is what we think. This is what your day is expected to look like. And as I shared, we're really focused on part-time at this point, except that I just hired someone to help us on our website. It was supposed to have been a part-time position, and she's already gone full-time. So she's dynamic. She's absolutely killing it. And so we found other opportunities for it. Jody, I think having the processes in place and then being able to make sure that your team is flexible and fluid is going to be really the key. And we'll see how the workforce is able to manage and handle that, especially with the next phase coming out, and employee payments and things like that from the government assistance.
Absolutely. I think to go in tandem with that, in addition to your previous recommendation about really focusing in on the learning opportunity as well, I would say right now is a great time for staff cross training and being able to make sure, as you said, you've got the right people in the right positions based on what their skill set is, what their interests are, but then also from a cross training standpoint, what do they wish they could have learned in the business that they just hadn't prior to this? So maybe there's that opportunity, as you said, being fluid and flexible, but also really investing back in for your staff in that learning and development opportunities.
Absolutely. When we came to our team, as business was moving and growing and adjusting and shrinking and changing and all of the things, we had to have those heart-to-heart conversations. We didn't want to lay anybody off. So this is the movement of the business. What are some things that these are some things that you're going to enjoy, and these are the things that I know you're not going to enjoy. So how can we mesh the two so that to not impact the business negatively, but then to keep my team happy and satisfied and continue to move everyone forward. All of that was key. So that open dialogue throughout all of this. I mean, I can't, another word that I want to kill is I have no idea what I am doing, guys. I have no idea. I'm doing with the information that I have, this is where we are. But having those open dialogues was imperative to my entire team as we navigated through this. And they have been phenomenal. I think that we've grown closer as a team, and that has helped because we all feel like we're just scrappy right now. We're pivoting and we're boxers and we're bobbing and weaving and we're doing all of these things. And that's really been very imperative to our growth and our success. We thankfully have hit our 2019 numbers, and we hit them in July. So that was because of all the things that we've been doing. We had already been involved in and had opportunities for some of these RFPs. We pivoted very quickly on PPE, and were able to get those orders before it became a thing, where we're all competing against each other. My contacts, I'd already been reaching out, and so they knew I was getting referred because nobody else had the PPE, and all of that helped us to gain a lot of traction through this. So, taking the steps that I've mentioned, the growth, the learning, the education, the 2%, the following up, building your relationships, building up your team, building up your friends, and then leaning and listening, and being engaged. It's very easy for all of us to want to sit on the couch and watch Netflix and drink wine and, say the woe is me. But at the end of the day, this is here. This is here. This is our lives now. And so we're either going to take it and grow and build and be better for this, or it's going to tear us down. And you guys have the option. You have the opportunity. Each one of us does. And I think that in this industry, we are amazing at being scrappy and taking things and building and creative and innovative and different and looking at things from different perspectives. I mean, the whole staycation idea was genius, and taking care of your kids is genius. We're in an industry where everything is so sensory. Everything is touch and emotional and smell and sound and sight. And that's really making those connections is what people need more than ever. So there's no reason for us to not take this and just really knock this industry and knock all of our clients, just make everybody crazy with what we're capable of. So I'm excited. I'm excited about this time. I mean, I know there've been plenty of times where I've had my wine and I've had my good cry. But at the end of the day, of all the industries to be in through this is definitely the one.
I love that. And I think just going back to, this is the industry where people can use all of their senses, and they can really take their marketing dollars and make it really go towards something that's going to increase their ROI and really focus in on the priorities and be able to create a better world, right? So there's
Right.
so much of that positive affect from our industry, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
I know there's so much that you've encapsulated into this session, and we really appreciate you being able to take the time and help guide us through what steps to look forward to next.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to connecting with everybody and brainstorming, and let's just keep on keeping on.
Absolutely. For everybody that is on the live session and the on-demand session, you'll just need to go back to that session launch page to complete the survey for today's session. We'll send the feedback over to Sarah that you write into that evaluation, and it will also automatically add the credit for today's session onto your industry transcript. Another thing to note for those folks that are interested in getting the slides, Sarah's email address is on the screen at this moment. So make sure you jot that down so that you can email her for these slides after today's presentation. And for those folks that weren't able to attend today's session, it will be available on demand. So if you've got colleagues that were unable to attend, just point them in the right direction. And as always, thank you for being able to join us for today's session. And today's session was copyrighted, all rights reserved by Promotional Products Association International. This concludes today's session. We hope that you can join us for another virtual session or webinar in the future. Thanks, everybody, and have a great day. Bye.